Are you trying to learn a language? Today in this video, we're going to be talking about how to learn a language as a slow language learner. That's right, slow, not fast. Everybody on the internet is talking about how do you learn a language so quickly? Learn the language in 6 months, 3 months, etc. Learning a language is something that takes time. And most people who learn a language, who want to learn a language very quickly, end up giving up in the long run. And that's obviously, something you don't want to do. So today in this video, we're going to be talking about, for me, what are some strategies I use to learn language. I've learned Spanish. I'm actually currently learning Russian, but I'm learning it super slow. And sometimes it's because we're lazy. Yeah, that's right. I consider myself to be a lazy language learner as well. Now, as I was saying, most people who learn a language very quickly, or at least try to learn a language very quickly, end up giving up because they don't really understand how much it actually takes to learn a language. One of the things I often say to people who are starting to learn language is almost kind of like a marriage. You got to marry the language because it takes so much time and effort. You have to put a lot of effort into it, and you can't just, after you're done learning to a certain level, just give up. You have to continue maintaining it. For example, my Spanish, although I speak maybe B1 level Spanish, I have to continue going back and speaking every week actually to keep it to a certain level. So I would recommend people who are actually learning a language to make sure they want it and they need it for the long run, and that it's not just something rather trivial. If that's yes, then of course you want to move forward. Then you have to decide how you're going to do it. And I think there's multiple steps and there's multiple things that you've got to take and try. I'm going to show you my specific strategy, what I do. The biggest thing, of course, is making sure to have a pen and pen notebook. And there's certain applications that you can use, of course. Most of the things I'll be covering, or even the last thing I won't be covering, won't be free, but everything else will generally be free. And so it can allow pretty much everybody who is around the world to learn their target language. There's so many resources out nowadays, especially with AI. One of the biggest things you need to make sure is have consistency. Most of the people who start learning language very quickly or have the mentality or idea that they're going to learn a language within 3 months, 6 months, end up giving up. You want to have a goal that is achievable, of course. And I think setting yourself a language goal for like 2 years or something like that, like I want to be able to speak, in my case, Russian, maybe to a B1 level in 2 years is okay. And that's totally fine. And I think some people learn quicker than others and slower than others, particularly me. I don't learn so quick. But that's okay. And some of the strategies, first of all, I use is whenever I'm learning any new vocabulary, verbs, etc., specifically verbs. I really try to focus on verbs and nouns, trying to get those words down. The one form of the verb, main form of the verb, so then when other forms start showing up, you can kind of connect them and get an idea to based on what people are saying, because you recognize the form, you recognize the verb, it's just in a different form. So start writing down verbs, and you think, well, writing down, I could do it on the note, I can do it on the computer or something like that. And that's true, but I think that if you write it in by hand, it kind of can help you review it and remember it more. And you're not necessarily going to review the notes. Maybe you will review some of the notes, but that's not the most important thing. Is actually just to follow the process of you writing it and remembering it. Now, the first thing is, okay, you're starting out as a new language learner. You have no idea what to do. The biggest thing I would do is I would go out to the internet. Of course, everybody talks about Duolingo. Of course, I don't think Duolingo is really good if you're trying to bring yourself from A2 to B1. But however, if you're trying to bring yourself from A1 to A2, I think it can be useful, specifically with Russian. I'll show you, I'll give you an example of why I think it's useful in this situation, specific situation. Okay, so if we go out to Duolingo, one of the things I want to show you here is, well, I'm on Spanish right now. I'll switch over to Russian. I haven't done very much with Russian. Look, I've done hardly anything. But the biggest thing is, if you're learning a language that doesn't use the Latin text, then you can use Duolingo to learn the letters and alphabet. That, for me, has proven to be very helpful. I've learned Hebrew, although I forgot mainly most of it. You see, that's why you want to make sure you're 100% dedicated to learning a language before you start, because it's not going to be worthwhile if you just forget it. But you can actually go through here and learn the letters, and that's very important. So like I can click one and you can hear the letters, how they sound, of course, and the different sounds and everything. And that's for starting out. I would say Duolingo is for very beginners. I don't recommend it for people who are over A2. I don't think it's a good idea. It just doesn't give you enough benefit for the amount of effort that you're going to have to put in. Most of the times we have to work with pronunciation, and that's one of the very important key things. And actually, a lot of times actually just use Google Translate, and I just write the words down and the phrases down on my notebook. So I'm going to show you that now. Again, easy. Pick your language, like your
Voi.
Dvoy. We say your Dvoy. So maybe I could say like, I have your car. I could say у меня есть твой машина, if that's correct. Let's see. Let's switch it to Russian. У меня есть твой машина. So у меня есть твой машина. I have your car. Let's see if we translate it. This is how I switch it. I switch it around. У меня твой машина. Some of the times in Russian you can change it depending on the circumstances. Like sometimes the words can change positions. It's not like specifically has to go in a specific area. That's just something related to Russian. But then I would take this and I would write this down on my notebook. And although I'm not going to come back and review it because I have hundreds of notes, and there's no way I'm going to be able to go through all of them. Maybe here and there, if I'm trying to search for a specific word, I'll just look it up in the translator. Another thing for Russian particularly is that they have a formal and an informal way to greet and talk to people. So depending on certain circumstances, I would recommend when you're learning languages to stick with a specific structure, and one specific structure, and then move out slowly. So like, I want to stick with more formal, although that the way was informal. So the formal way to say it would be vash, like your. So I could say у меня есть vash машина. Okay, that translated wrong. Let me try it again. If we fail to get it to work properly or get us be able to speak it correctly in the translator, usually it's because we're saying it incorrectly, and that's actually what the case I just found out just a second ago off trying to look it up. And usually the best thing to do is, of course, just to come on over to ChatGPT and ask a question, which is usually what I would do. And I'm going to ask something like, how to say, do you have a car, formally in Russian. There we go. And it should give me, yeah, it's going to be like, and I was saying it wrong. That's correct. У вас есть машина. I was saying like вас есть машина, which is incorrect. Because there's different forms, and I'm often getting confused between which form I'm supposed to use. But that's okay. You can also do other things. And I'm going to go back to the translator. Let's say I want to say, for example, I want a car. I could say, я хочу машина. And I want a car. Now, this is just specific ways you would put in, like, I want, and then you'd get я хочу, and then you'd also go maybe to want, and you'd find out this is хотеть. Хотеть. And I may not pronounce that correctly. I'm sure people who know Russian will be like, that's the wrong way to pronounce it. I'm sure. But the idea is to use those words and then write them down in the notebook and try to progressively go over them as time goes by. Don't rush it. The thing is like, have a goal for 2 years, like I said, set that goal and just slowly work through it. And maybe you don't even need a goal. Maybe you just tell yourself, Okay, for an hour every day, for 15 minutes every day, maybe even 30 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever you can do. Practice a little bit of the language that you want to learn every single day. And then within time, you'll be like, wow, okay, I actually can communicate, say a few words in my target language, and I can start working with that. I think it's very important with languages that are on Google Translate that actually you can hear them. There are some languages that you actually can't hear or hear the pronunciation of how they're spoken, and that's very difficult for new learners. Of course, this is covering the new learners from A1 to A2. For the people who are learning their target language from A2 to B1, I'm going to now be discussing my strategies and how I would do that. I've learned Spanish to B1 level. I haven't really progressed further than that, so I'm not going to talk about B2 or C1 or C2 because I'm not even that level. And one of the most important things I feel like when learning language in general is to change up your environment, which is why I'm going to be going to the coffee shop. I'm going to bring you guys along. They may ask, why would you want to change up the environment while you're learning a language? Well, I find when you combine the memories, or specifically when you combine the language with the memories, like for example, if you go to a new coffee shop that you've never been to and you learn a new word or so in Russian there, then maybe because of that memory, you will also remember that word. That word will become part of the memory of you going to that new coffee shop or whatever new place it was. So that's why I really recommend changing up your environment, making it different every single time, not making a schedule routine, because you tend to forget more things that are in routine and in a schedule. Okay, so now I'm at the coffee shop actually, guys, and the second part to learning a language after you've gotten past, A1 and you're at A2, and even A2 sometimes can seem a little elementary for speaking practice, but that's what you have to do next. You have to get a speaking partner. Some people, of course, they speak with AI, and maybe that's a good step to start with, especially if you're trying to do it for free. However, if you want to actually have real experience talking to people, I recommend exchanges. Exchanges where you can actually practice with someone for 30 minutes and then practice with someone and help them practice your language. Specifically, if you're speaking English, you're a native English speaker, there's always people who are available who want to learn your language and that are willing to help you with theirs. Sip of coffee. You can find those people, of course, on Hello Talk and Tandem. However, I've generally found that people who are on those platforms aren't as serious. Now, if you're okay with investing a bit of money, there's also platforms like Preply and Italki. Specifically, I like Italki, but that's because that's where I work. Actually, I teach as a tutor online. But there's also Preply as well. I'll put a link below to Italki where you can sign up. You can choose multiple different teachers. And they speak many different languages. So you can do some reading and series. Obviously, I forgot to mention that. Shadowing is one very good option. Pick series in your target language that you want to learn and try to shadow them. Meaning, what you would do is you would start playing the episode, and then you would say every single word that they say in their language. And then, of course, if you see the subtitles in their language, in the target language, not your language, not your native language, but the language that you're learning, the subtitles should be in that. Then when you see a word you don't recognize, you take that and you translate it. You translate it into the language that you know, and then you write it down on your notebook to keep track of those words. Of course, maybe you'll forget it unless it becomes very, very common and frequently used. So to summarize everything up, basically if you're an A1 student starting out in a language, the first thing you need to do is start with vocabulary, some grammar, and also verbs. I think those are the basic things. Learn the basic structures, how to say basic sentences. You can do that. Yeah, starting Duolingo, I don't recommend that very much. more over A2 level, I really don't think that's very helpful for you. You can learn the letters and alphabet. If it has a different alphabet structure than Latin text, then you can use that, Duolingo. That'll help you with also some vocabulary as well. Obviously use Duolingo and some AI to help you build up that grammatical structure and learn how to pronounce and say words correctly. And then move on to trying to do conversation. You don't want to force yourself or be frustrated when you don't meet goals. I almost, for myself, don't even set goals. I just say, okay, I'm going to try to practice every single day. And we don't really know when we're going to achieve a specific level, but we know with time we will achieve it. Once you get yourself to an A2 level, then you can start practicing maybe speaking with people, some basic conversations, and then as you practice, you'll start to become more advanced. And once you get to B1 level, you can decide to either maintain it or continue forward if you're really wanting to become an advanced speaker. I even recommend getting immersed in the environment, get yourself surrounded with people who only speak that language. If you do that, then you can easily, I think, reach a B2 level pretty quickly. Okay, that is the end of the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. In general, learning a language is difficult, and it's going to take time, years, to learn it to a certain level where you can have a conversation, especially if it's a difficult language like Russian or Chinese. Those languages aren't very easy, and forget about Hungarian. It's almost impossible. But comment below if you have any advice or ways in which you learn a language, any tips or tricks. I'd love to hear it, and I'm sure a lot of other people would like to hear it watching this video as well. You take care. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.